So today's thought of the day is if not to, not to is known as the seat of Atman. Cleanliness and simplicity are the characteristic features of this state. A feeling of moderation is also experienced to a certain extent. So this is from Towards Infinity in second now. And so I was thinking to read that second knot condition of Towards Infinity. Followed by this paragraph is from Path of Grace, where Sir has described the second knot. So we can read these two. Uh, Okay, so I'll start reading. So we are reading from Towards Infinity, which is part of basic writings of Sri Ramchandra. Second knot. Our intensity of devotion now forces our way into it. It must be borne in mind that on entering into every successive knot, there is a slight feeling of heaviness in the mind, on account of which people often discontinue the practice. But if we take into consideration that every attack of illness is followed by the restoration of good health, we will be encouraged better to attempt crossing of the knots. Now, the tone of spiritual experiences is further changed. We feel considerably relieved of the previous denser effect. A clearer view of reality now begins to dawn. Lightness develops to the extent of simplicity all through, though perfect purity is yet far off. This condition comes in about the end of the second knot. Here we feel glimpses of soul, and our experiences at the points are of similar nature. For this reason, it is known as the seat of the Atman. Cleanliness and simplicity are the characteristic features of this state. A feeling of moderation is also experienced to a certain extent. There are innumerable points, the detailed description of which is not of much consequence, and their difference is beyond words to explain. In short, now the blissful conditions of the sphere of the soul are being unveiled unto us. We get acquainted with characteristic features of the region, and by continued meditation, we secure our merging into it. The first covering is now removed, and we begin to sense the fragrance of the soul, and similar visions appear within and without. Unless we have attained full realization of this state, we cannot claim to have acquired knowledge at all. If we try to develop it by the force of concentration, it will only be sham. The extraordinary mental visions will no doubt come to view, but since they have resulted from the exercise of thought power, they will only serve as a bondage to keep us ensnared so tightly that it shall almost be impossible to extricate ourselves from it. A true aspirant is he who adopts the right course and the right procedure from the beginning to the end. This second knot covers the entire sphere of the soul. It comprises innumerable subpoints appearing in the form of layers, settled round one after the other, and which we have all to get over in order to emerge out of the region. Anyhow, we now exert ourselves to get out and arrive at the next stage by the help of the divine grace. Now, our entry into the next sphere of divine enlightenment justifies our claim to have become Jnani or knower up to that extent. Any questions? Anyone wants to add anything? Just one point to note, right? Here he says that on entering into every successive knot, there is a slight feeling of heaviness in the mind, on account of which people often discontinue the practice. But if we take into consideration that every attack of illness is followed by the restoration of good health, we will be encouraged better to attempt crossing of the knots. I remember even Sir says somewhere, right? When we are into a certain knot, we like that condition, and then we don't want to go further. When the master pushes us into the next thing, we may not like it. So it's a practical point that we all need to remember. The other point here is just by exercising the mind, we cannot get the condition, and it is something that we will feel. So, in terms of how we feel the soul, glimpses of our soul, Sir has described in more detail. So, let's read that. So, this is from Path of Grace, Pindadesh chapter, second knot. The location is shown here. Current states. It is here for the first time the taste of liberation is had. After having had developed disinterestedness in everything other than God or the goal through the development undergone in the knots 1 and 1b, and having developed love for the master, a feeling of relief from the oppressive bondage of attachment is experienced. The Annamaya Kosha, which is the first sheath, is loosened here, and revered Babuji, writing about the condition in this knot, says the first covering is now removed, and we begin to sense the fragrance of the soul, and similar visions appear within and without. Of the five koshas that bind consciousness to existence, the most powerful one is the Annamaya kosha, which takes care of every conceivable physical and physiological need. Liberation from it is really liberation in almost every sense. The first two knots of consciousness have a certain amount of dense or heavy feeling. All feelings there are highly emotional in either positive or negative sense. Heaviness is their characteristics. Compared to that state of consciousness, here in Knot 2, there is lightness of feeling both in case of attachment to the divine or detachment to the mundane existence. As is obvious, any progress in the realm of spirituality is only through extreme devotion to God and commitment to reach the goal. It is devotedness and devout application of one's energy that leads to this knot. Having had some success in the knots 1 and 1b, it is most likely that the sadhaka feels that he has developed spiritually and falls into the pit of pride of being one up. But the aspiration of the sadhaka, aided by the pranahuti transmission from a competent master, surely helps overcome this problem. It is clear that the most important element on the spiritual path of the aspiration is inspiration. It comes as the divine response to his aspiration. Aspiration, inspiration, spiritual discrimination, and intuition, the joy of the heart, are so many aspects of consciousness had in this sphere of the spirit. For the first time, we feel lightness of being and feel as if we are birds soaring with both the wings fully stretched. This knot is the replica of the original state of consciousness. As it becomes clear, we feel all the states of consciousness from one of total bondage to that of total void through the states of devotion, surrender, faith, and constant remembrance, all mixed up or independently. It is a pure mirror when purified to the fullest extent. Higher states of consciousness gets reflected here fully. The light of the ultimate, when reflected here, is so perfect that one may take it as the ultimate itself. This knot has its connection to the Chitlek. All the thoughts that arise in us have their origin, the Chitlek. The nature and location of the Chitlek is given at the appropriate context in this commentary. The flow from the Chitlek to the second knot is a weak one, and weak one for one who has not advanced much in spiritual life and is strong in those who have moved far in the path. The flow of thoughts from the Chitlek is more towards the lower tendencies of mind located in the lower portion of the heart. Through efforts to realize one's true nature, the downwards tendency gets reduced and the flow now towards the second knot gets thicker. The connection to the second knot is therefore from two sources. The horizontal movement from knot 1 is one, and the other, the flow from the Chitlek through the point X located in the chest region. See Appendix 2. That divine willed its strength this way is the understanding of the enlightened. Just take a pause here.
Do we have that figure, Bhaiya, that appendix 2?
Yeah. Good. Let me go to Appendix 2, it said, right? This is the point X.
Oh, okay.
From this, it
It's
shows to
different
that.
from knot 5 or?
I won't be able to comment on that. Yeah.
Okay.
The only thing I would say, it's a flow. So I would not try to flow to the second knot or the Atman point.
Mm-hmm.
When it's a flow is there, I will not try to overlap or mix that it is exactly this point.
Okay.
But again, that's just my experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone can add their experience. I'll go ahead. When a sadhaka is traversing this sphere, he would feel calmness and peace. He is likely to experience light of the nature of moonshine. It is also possible he feels the color red, which turns itself into white later. The peace and happiness one feels here may be said to be similar to that of the Satchidanand experience. The purity of the state is such that the reflection of higher states may make the sadhaka feel that he is having the original experience itself. The influx of the divine flow in a sadhaka who has got the knot cleaned thoroughly will be so intense that he may feel that he is drowned in divinity itself. The grip and engulfing feeling experienced here in such a state cannot be described in words. It is total and all consuming. Yet there is a certain amount of heaviness in that feeling which should be sufficient for a sadhaka to yearn for the original and seek the ultimate state. The outermost covering, that is Annamaya Kosha, having got loosened, the spirit is enabled to move out of the shackles. The spirit starts movement consciously. Revered Lavlaji Maharaj says that at this stage we feel consciousness as Atman. Atman is the conglomerate of mind, manas, chit, and ahankar. Before arriving at this stage, all these four are highly influenced by the forces of the Annamaya Kosha, and there is very little movement and one is confined. At this stage, the binds of the mind, manas, and ahankar get loosened, and there is a perceptible movement amounting to liberation that is felt. This capacity of moving and thinking, Revered Lalaji Maharaj says, is the Atman. The consciousness or chit at this stage has not yet developed the capacity to grow with purpose, but has only acquired a part of its original nature by freeing itself from the state of relative inertia due to the binds of the Annamaya Kosha. This is also the stage when the compassion to fellow beings grows and seeds of love and concern for others develop. This is because Ananda and Sat do not know boundaries. One having crossed in relative sense of course the boundaries of Annamaya Kosha feels that there is no real barrier between him and others, and feeling that boundaries are only conventions starts sprouting at this stage. This is called spiritual heart, mainly because of this feeling. One feels for all the fellow beings, and love and concern for others are predominantly developed. One of the major intricacies that get untwined here is the understanding that one has no individual existence and all are interdependent. The delusion of independent self is got rid of, and the full understanding of all existence emerges. It gets realized that the individual is dependent on the divine and the divine equally so. We find ourselves as organically united with the divine, and separateness is lost. Inasmuch as the self is understood as part of the divine, confidence in oneself as capable of reaching the goal develops fully, and confidence in the master gets established. The archetype principle of service, sacrifice, harmony get enshrined in the core of the heart. Of course, this development is dependent on the awareness of the role of self in the cosmic scheme of things that gets matured as one progresses deeper in meditation. This point is approximately 3 finger width away from the right nipple towards the heart. Prayer develops into a new dimension here and changes from the personal to the universal in character. By attending the prayer at the point A as advocated by the Master, it becomes easy to gain access to the divine grace. Such divine grace alone can enable one to move to the next stage. So that covers the knot 2. Any questions? Anyone wants to add their experiences? Again, these are the conditions. This is where I think it helps us when we read this, right? That what is that we are feeling in the meditation, after the meditation, and also during the day. And the more we are able to describe that honestly, that will help us also to know the conditions and the things that the knots that we are passing. So here it clearly says the binding of the Annamaya kosha is loosened. So the attachment to the body is loosened, and that is a predominant feature, I feel, when we are coming to this knot, right? And that is where we have we feel the consciousness as Atman. The other thing Sir says is where the separateness is not there, right? The boundaries, right? That we are different from others is gone. And then that is where the compassion, love, service, those qualities gets developed. So this is again, people can see that okay, during the day, right? So in the meditation, when we are absorbed, we don't feel the body, we don't have any boundaries. But when we are interacting with the others during the day-to-day work, right? How much of that we feel, and that is where uh, it's one of the characteristics of this. The other thing it says it is glimpses of realization, and this is what Sir has described in the various ways. Purity, as well as in terms of the consciousness into the different ways, right? Calmness, peace, and happiness, which is similar to the Satchidananda experience. Dakshinamurthy sir, want to add?
Yeah, I think it's very clear. I think only thing is that we should not get trapped and say that we have reached the goal because of the feelings we get. But slight heaviness is indicative of the goal being far away. Trap is that here we get attached to the fellow travelers mostly. That is another problem which we face in this knot.
That is in this game of life, right? Instead of attaching ourselves to the master, we attach ourselves to the fellow travelers.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Anything related? Do you think we want to read or just remain in this condition?
Any audio you want to play?
There may be one of interdependency, if that is something that we want to play. There is one on dependency in volume 7, chapter 13. It's a 15-minute one. Should we play that?
Yeah, we'll play that.
Okay, so I'll play the audio of this dependency from Bodhayanti Parasparam, volume 7, chapter 13.
Talk delivered in February 2008 on the occasion of Basant Celebrations 2008, titled Dependency, printed in Bodhayanti Parasparam volume 7, chapter 13.
Dear co-travelers in the path, my humble pranams to all of you. After having been in the company of the Master more intensely for the past 1 hour, it is no pleasant feeling to part with it and come out of the roaring silence. Obviously, the sweet love and celestial silence is what I call roaring. The magnetic gripping power that passeth understanding that enwrapped us all this while is what we have been asked to share with others and spread the message of the Master. It is over 16 years the ISRC has been assiduously engaged in this task of educating and doing further research, even as desired by the great Master Babuji Maharaj in a letter in 1979. The power imperience is such that we are all overwhelmed by it, and some thought it will take care of everything in sadhana. That thought is the main reason for some persons who have blown out of proportion the role of pranahuti and the role of the Master. The words Master and the Master with the capital M have different meanings, and unfortunately, one was confused with the other by many. Having created the confusion, the role of the aspirant was sought to be reduced to nothing. Revered Babuji Maharaj has made it clear through his messages and writings that the aspirants have a great role to play as well as the preceptors. The articles, the last devotion and determination are among the many that puts forward his point forcibly. Accordingly and in compliance of the Master's wishes, we have tried to explain the role of the aspirant as well as that of the trainer as clearly as possible through our publications, CDs, training slides, seminars, training programs and the program of Mansarovar. I am sure that many of you have played the game of life, which teaches us many aspects of sadhana. Our latest self-evaluation tool to assess our progress in Brindesh has been found by many aspirants highly useful, and are taking measures to overcome the conditions desirable for permanent stay in the Brahman and other higher regions. Naturally, that requires courage and absolute faith in the Master, and we are happy that we could bring many aspirants to that state of being lions in the path. That is a reward by itself for ISRC. I do not intend to dwell on those aspects in detail now. I am sure that many have had occasion to see our websites, and I appeal to those who have not to see our websites in detail. The coordinating agency for training and research is our institution Imperience, and those who do not have access to computers may contact any of the members of Imperience who would be too happy to help you. All these efforts of ours have been aimed to make us deserving as both the aspirants and trainers. When we experience the divine and divine commands, it is but necessary that we own up those conditions, and ISRC has been particularly emphasizing this aspect. More so in the case of trainers, there was a stress laid on their owning up the condition so that their service to the aspirants would be of a high order. Recently, we heard a very ingenious yet ill-informed argument that if the trainers were to own up the conditions, what will Revered Babuji do? And it was added that this means that Revered Babuji does not exist in ISRC. This argument derives its sap from the notions mentioned above, which were popular in some circles of disciples of the Master, but which are never true. Their belief maintains the notion that pranahuti flows up from the blues or directly from the heart of the Master, and the Master would work according to the need automatically, and the trainers need to do nothing except sit and get honored for such a noble job. This and many such magical and mysterious notions of such an effect from pranahuti were sought to be cleared off in one of our latest publications, Pranahuti. The pranahuti is the willpower of a person who is advanced in Raja Yoga and who can foment to another with his own internal power, has been stated very clearly more than once. The notions about pranahuti in any other manner and thinking that the Master does all the work is surely the desire of those who would like to call themselves as aspirants and trainers, but would crave and indulge in realms of sloth, laziness, unaccountability, and irresponsibility. There is some error in thinking among our associates. They feel that service is a means of progress in spirituality, and donate in cash and kind liberally to Saraseva Samsthan, which does lot of noble service. The quality of service rendered by Saraseva Samsthan is well appreciated by the governmental agencies as well as funding agencies which have inspected the institutions of Saraseva Samsthan. However, I may be permitted to clarify that it is those who are advanced in spirituality and stepped into the universal consciousness and live in altruistic consciousness that feel the genuine need for service. It is not as though whoever does social service moves to higher realms in spirituality. An article by Dr. KCV on service to mankind was published in our Satyapadam more than once, just to clarify these types of notions. I appeal to aspirants clearly to understand that spiritual training that we seek to impart to the ISRC and its sister wing Imperience has nothing whatsoever to do with Saraseva Samsthan, which is run, of course, by the aspirants following the ISRC, whose character and nobility is of a very high order. It is true, we say that since SSS is doing good work, fellow brethren may help that organization grow in a manner in which they think they can. It is said that it takes one to know one. What this really means is that we cannot feel, see, or experience something in someone else unless it is also inside us. So, if one could feel, see, or experience appreciation, respect, happiness, excitement, conversation, compatibility, humor, inner peace, extreme support, and deep meaningful passion in one's mirror, we should appreciate that person for having amazing qualities of what may be called love. Many aspirants seek to know their condition in spiritual life. For this they should be attentive during meditation and other practices connected with sadhana. Attentiveness is effective in noting the arising of our thoughts and recognizing the contents of our thoughts and beliefs. It is particularly useful in changing the self-limiting beliefs we have that is preventing us from unlimited possibilities. Since changing these unconscious self-limiting beliefs requires that we first identify them, attentiveness plays a crucial role in this identification process. When we are attentive to the thoughts and beliefs in our mind, we can then work on replacing beliefs that limit us with wholesome and life-enhancing ones. How can we increase our attentiveness? We will do that through meditation. Those of the aspirants who ask how to be attentive during meditation may kindly note that continuous meditation alone enables us to be attentive to our states of mind. Meditation, when done on a regular basis, increases our attentiveness about the object of meditation and allows us to gradually peel off layers upon layers of negative mental and emotional imprints, generally called samskaras. The more we are attentive of the goal and the object of meditation, the more we create room for positive belief systems and they in turn efface imprints that are not in consonance with the goal and create room for new positive and divine-centered beliefs and imprints that we are pregnant with. The one imprint that we have inherited from the days when we were descending from the base while passing through the rings of splendor is dependency on master. Such dependency is in fact our real true nature. It is our soulmate. Dependency precedes consciousness according to some great mystics. Without it, we are not, and without us, it is not. But before we come to the state of being permanently abiding in the consciousness of dependency, we need to, as pointed out above, get rid of the negative mental and emotional imprints which were also gathered by us in the journey of our individual manifestation. The compliance to the commandments of the Master enables us to effectively attend to this task, more particularly with a clear understanding, without yielding to all sorts of logic for sloth and other intellectual aberrations. We need to learn through implementing the commandments 1, 5, 6 and 7, the attitudes and ability to live in a state of dependency. Dependency enables us to live by the principle of letting go, which has been fully explained by the Master in his commentary on the commandment 7. The ability to let go complements attentiveness. Attentiveness allows us to be aware of our negative thoughts, beliefs and feelings. With the awareness and insight, we can then let go of them. Since we spend almost every waking hour seeking, acquiring, grasping and clinging on to things, we have the tendency to resist letting go. In fact, most people find it extremely difficult to let go of anything and particularly of feelings and beliefs. This is because we have learned to identify our feelings and beliefs as ourselves. We think we are feelings and beliefs. Thus we fight and struggle to keep these feelings and beliefs in an effort to preserve ourselves, regardless of whether they are useful or harmful to us. The effective method of letting go is through attentiveness itself. When we become aware of our negative thoughts and feelings due to our attentiveness, which often hide in our subconscious mind, we have to decide to let them go. This, of course, is not easy. As we all know, it is here our dependency on the Master comes to play. Here we find that we are unfortunate slaves of our wishes, and we find ourselves incapable of being free. In our innate nature of dependency, if our innate nature of dependency on the Master is remembered through the period of meditation and purification process, our attentiveness to the flaws and defects in us get washed out. Now that we are drenched in the shower of the grace of the Master and are immersed in the thought of the Master, I would request you to remember the Master's advice. We should utilize this occasion in getting into the Master and Master alone, which will act as food and tonic for spiritual elevation. Remembrance should be in a way that we feel the thought of remembrance oozing out from the objects everywhere. It is a real remembrance which mortals can have. It is a play for our good. My humble pranam to all spiritual fraternity.
Anything to add?
It's really clear.
Just one practical thing, this something struck me. Right, if our innate nature of dependency on the master is remembered through the period of meditation and purification process, our attentiveness to the flaws and defects in us get washed out. Many times we just keep thinking about the defects that we.
By being in the master, we get purified. In the purification process, we don't think of our defects, because we just push them out. We never think of what our defects are or what our impurities are, which we are trying to get rid of.
Yes.
By being in the thought of the master itself will purify us. That's what he means. One more point, he says that the spiritual service is more important than the physical service. So that one more point, he makes it here.
Yes, very important. The other thing, attentiveness is during the day also. It is not just attentiveness in the meditation.
No.
That's important.
And he also stresses on the principle of letting go. So don't cling on to whatever it is.
Yes. So if there is nothing, we can we'll meet next Sunday. Thank you. Namaste.